Hello and welcome to LimeWedgeLoej's Week 16 Playoff Machine Picks. Last week, it was an iffy week, but hopefully this week will be better. Also, it's a little bit later than normal. I usually try to put out my predictions on Tuesday, but with, Christmas and all that, my schedule's been a little bit off. But anyway, you don't come here to listen to my schedule, you come here to listen to my NFL picks. In a game that doesn't matter between the Chargers and the Raiders are at home, we'll give it to them. The Chargers just destroyed a bad Dolphins team. The Raiders played solid. It's in Oakland. The Chargers haven't done well all season. We'll give it to them. And very, very important matchup right here. With a win, the Redskins clinch the horrible NFC East. And Kirk Cousins will tell everybody who is in earshot that he does indeed like that. But unfortunately for him, Chip Kelly and the Eagles are playing well enough at home. I think they're going to win that game. This is put up or shut up time for the Jets. The Patriots are injured. If there was a time for the Jets to play the Patriots, this is it. That being said, it's Bill Belichick versus the Jets. You got to go with Bill Belichick. The Texans pretty much have sealed up the AFC South, beating the Colts. I'm sorry, Colts fans. They were my sleeper team to get to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, and that hasn't panned out. Chiefs, the Dolphins were so bad against the Chargers. I have to give it to the Colts. I don't think with the Texans beating the Titans that the Colts can win it at that point. So the Colts would be eliminated from the playoffs. Ooh, Lions. The Lions, if they had been able to steal a couple games earlier, might still be in the playoff debate, but they weren't. So, sorry, Detroit. I'm sorry, Cowboys fans. I don't normally say those words, but I'm sorry. In a game that is no longer meaningful for either of these teams, it looked very promising at the beginning of the year, or not even at the beginning of the year, just like 2 weeks ago. That this game could be, a big playoff decider. It's not. Let's give it to the Bears. Another one that doesn't matter. The last time these two teams matched up, some people were saying, the Panthers, this will be a potential trap game. The Panthers won 38-0. On ESPN's most recent power rankings, I saw in the comments a Falcons fan saying, "Oh, the Falcons are going to beat the Panthers." When the week before last you lose 38-0, I don't care who you're a fan of, especially when your team is free falling as much as Atlanta, you have no right to say that your team's going to win against an undefeated team. I'm sorry, you have no right. If there is ever a trap game for Pittsburgh, it's against the Ravens. Speaking of trap games, the Broncos have choked for the last 2 weeks and they could possibly miss out on the playoffs. The Broncos choked like dogs against the Raiders and then choked like dogs against the Steelers. It's ridiculous how much choking they did. The Jaguars at the Saints. The Saints are playing considerably better, and the Saints could reasonably finish second in the division. After doing so bad all season, it looked like the Saints were that one team that was just going to completely fall behind everyone else. And no, the Saints have come back. Speaking of a hot team, the Rams. Oh, what about them Rams? Jeff Fisher's team is always a thorn in the side of Seattle. I know a couple weeks ago I picked them, to upset Arizona. I'm going to give it to Seattle, but if there's a team that's going to, play spoiler for the Seahawks, it would be the Rams. And another game that should be really good, the Packers at the Cardinals. I think I've picked the Cardinals every time. I'm gonna give it to the Cardinals, but a Packers win wouldn't surprise me. At this point, Tom Coughlin and the Giants need a win to stay alive. They have to have it. The Vikings, would like a win, but they don't have to have it. So the Giants play with a little bit more urgency. They stay alive in the playoffs. This one is another extremely interesting game. On one hand, the Bengals should be able to beat the Broncos considering the fact that the Broncos have choked so badly. But it's in prime time. I don't know if you can read that. Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Any primetime game is horrible for the Bengals. Plus, the Bengals don't have Andy Dalton. I'm going to give it to Denver. With a loss here, Denver would be in jeopardy of missing the playoffs, but I don't think so. The Jets beat the Bills, and then another 10-6 team looks like they're going to miss the playoffs. Well, they will miss the playoffs. Patriots cruise past the Dolphins. Even if they don't play their starters, they'll probably still beat the Dolphins. The Panthers, even if they start backup quarterback Anderson, they still have a reasonable shot to beat the Buccaneers. Panthers perfect season. Saints beat the Falcons to finish second in the division. Bengals with a pride win over the Ravens. It's not enough for Pittsburgh to catch Cincinnati and take the division, but, Pittsburgh is going to the playoffs. It's pretty much a lock at this point, unless they find a way to choke their next two games away. The Colts beat the Titans. Not that it matters at this point. Indianapolis 8-8 at one point looked like it was good enough to get in the playoffs. Not this time. Houston has supposedly claimed it. At this point, the Cowboys can hope for nothing more than to play spoiler for the Redskins. But will they? First, let's say I'm going to go with the Eagles over the Giants. I think that the Eagles just have a little bit better team, but this is a coin flip. All these games are coin flips. Because the Eagles win makes this game moot. No matter who wins, Eagles make the playoffs. But that is if they beat the Redskins. And then if the Redskins, this is all the scenarios. If the Redskins beat the Eagles, they are in no matter what. If the Giants lose against the Vikings, they are out no matter what. Because no matter what happens, Giants can't make the playoffs in that situation. If the Redskins win, it doesn't matter who wins or loses, the Redskins make the playoffs. This is all the tiebreaker mumbo jumbo. We're going to assume Philadelphia doesn't pull a Donovan McNabb and get a tie. This is assuming there's no ties and all have definitive winners. So, Redskins win this game, they're in no matter what. We're going assuming the Eagles win. The Cowboys are officially eliminated, they're out, no chance of them getting in. Eagles win, they're in no matter what. Eagles lose, Redskins lose, Giants are in. Eagles lose, Redskins in, Redskins are in. So, my official pick is that the Eagles get in. Lions win their game. This one, based on my predictions, is a flip-flop game. Vikings win. There's a wild card game where the Packers host the Vikings. Packers win. They have to play Minnesota again the following week. And that is assuming that a little bit right there. The Seahawks will have to win this game. But at this point, Arizona would rest their starters, and Seattle would want to play at Philadelphia. So I'm predicting it's going to be Seattle's main team trying to win the game to get the 5th seed versus Arizona's backups, which would mean Seattle would win that game fairly easily. which would lock Seattle into the 5 seed regardless. A loss would make it a little bit more interesting, meaning if Minnesota wins and Seattle loses, it'd be Green Bay at Philadelphia and Seattle at Minnesota. And Seattle would much rather play Philadelphia than Minnesota. If Green Bay wins, it would be a moot point. Seattle would get that, and Green Bay and Minnesota would have a rematch. But again, I am picking the Seahawks to win, and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm picking the Packers in the regular season. Broncos will be able to get past the Chargers. I don't foresee them choking. It's possible they choke, but I don't know. At this point of the season, anything can happen. And the Rams get a little morale booster, possibly saving Jeff Fisher for another season, because he might be getting close there on the hot seat. With all this in mind, I would like to apologize to the Jets fans. 10-6 record, not enough for the playoffs this year. The Colts fans, what could have been if Luck didn't get hurt? He could have probably by himself carried the Colts to the playoffs over the Texans. To the Redskins and the Giants fans, how close are we to making the playoffs in all this? They could possibly do it, but they're not. Wait, I threw off my tiebreaker there. I completely threw off my tiebreaker. That was with Minnesota winning. Anyway, I'm assuming Minnesota, loses that game. Which in that case wouldn't matter if Arizona won or not. But anyway, you've got a few extra tiebreakers for your money there. And who else? Any more apologies? Nope, I think that's good on apologies. Anyway, playoff time. And I think someone else mentioned it. I do plan on doing these for the playoffs as well. Whenever it gets to the playoffs, I'll do it for the wild card round, the divisional round, the championship round, and eventually LimeWedgeLoej's Super Bowl pick. Yeah, Super Bowl. Anyway, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. I have to give the edge to Pittsburgh. It'll be a primetime game no matter what. Cincinnati still probably won't have Andy Dalton. Pittsburgh's playing really good. Pittsburgh beats Cincinnati. The Chiefs versus the Texans. The Texans did good making the playoffs. It's a nice boost for them getting a home game. But I have to say the Chiefs are going to win it. Which will have the 6 seed Steelers at the 1 seed Patriots and the 5 seed Chiefs at the 2 seed Broncos. This may sound slightly outrageous, but I have both Pittsburgh and Kansas City beating both New England and Denver. New England is so beat up that a hot Pittsburgh team will be able to knock them off, and Denver still is pretending that they're choking on a hot dog. Until they stop choking, I'm not going to pick them. Who knows? This week they could come out lightning hot, just crush the Bengals, then come out and crush the Chargers, and I'd be all on board the Bengal bandwagon. Not the Bengal bandwagon, the Denver bandwagon. They would have, Denver would have just completely destroyed Cincinnati's bandwagon by that point. So, right now I have the AFC Championship game is Pittsburgh at Kansas City. I'm going to give you just a second to let that sink in. Okay, Kansas City at Pittsburgh. No, Pittsburgh at Kansas City. I shouldn't record my videos at 2 a.m. in the morning, but I realized that I work all day today, and there's a game tonight. Yeah, it's technically Thursday. I'm going to give the slight edge to Kansas City, because they haven't lost in so long. Either team could win that game, but I'm going to give it to Kansas City for the time being. Right now, my tentative AFC power rankings based off the playoffs, which isn't including the Jets because they're not in right now, would have to be Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Denver, New England, Cincinnati, and Houston. And that's going off the fact that Cincinnati has lost Andy Dalton and has just been horrible in the playoffs. So I'm taking that into consideration. And I'm taking all of New England's injuries into consideration. So, it's nothing against the Patriots, but they're not at full strength. Anyone who watches football knows that. How far can they go with just Tom Brady and Gronkowski? In the NFC, I don't see the Packers beating the Vikings 2 weeks in a row, even if it is in Lambeau. It's so hard in the NFL to do that, especially against a quality team like Minnesota. I've got Minnesota with the upset here. It's two rival teams. Stranger things have happened. Here was also what I would see as a trap game for Seattle. Teams from horrible divisions who manage to get to the playoffs are known for stealing a game. Just look at Carolina last year. They were 7-8-1, got to the playoffs, and won a game. That's how you do it. But I'm not predicting that. I'm predicting both wildcard teams to win again in the NFC, for this week at least. Vikings at Panthers, Seahawks at Cardinals. And now this is a rematch of the last week of the season between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Except this time, the Cardinals are playing to win. But I'm not a big fan of resting your players for 2 weeks. I feel that'll make you slightly rusty. I think Seattle, with their momentum, will take down Arizona. But, Joel, what have you said this whole time? You've always said, go with the hot hand, the team that's winning. Arizona keeps winning. Well, by that point, I think Seattle will be the hot hand. Even if Seattle beats Arizona's backups, they're still beating Arizona. So I'm going to go with Seattle again in the playoffs. Minnesota at Carolina. I just want this matchup to happen for a lot of reasons. I remember the Vikings saying, "Oh, we're the last regular season team to beat the Panthers. Come on, Panthers, play us again. Play us again and we'll end that streak." I want to be able to step out and say, "Step up, Minnesota fans. Step up." And then watch the Panthers destroy them. Which will set up for Seattle coming back to Carolina for the second time this year in what's turning into a rivalry. I don't think you can call what's going on between Carolina and Seattle anything less than a rivalry at this point. They're playing once a year and the games are mattering. I'm sticking with my mantra, pick Carolina until they lose, but Seattle's a team that could take down Carolina. I think Carolina and Seattle are mirrors of each other, but Carolina does what Seattle does, but better. So I'm going with Carolina against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. I know that this is, an old beaten mantra for me. Just Kansas City, Carolina, Super Bowl. But I'm sticking with the hot teams. Andy Reid versus Ron Rivera. And then the Panthers winning the Super Bowl, doing something that only the Dolphins have done. The Patriots come also close, but the Panthers will do it. And then ESPN the next day won't be reporting the Panthers winning as great and, monumental. They'll be reporting the Carolina Panthers are the worst team to ever go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. Yep. Not going to even celebrate it. ESPN's not going to have one celebration for the Panthers. They're only going to bash them, saying they're worse than the 72 Dolphins. That's all they're going to do. And if you don't think that sounds like ESPN, go and look at their power rankings. After Atlanta beat Jacksonville, they jumped 11 spots in their power rankings. ESPN's power rankings are a joke. Anyway, I'm the Great and Mighty LimeWedgeLoej. I hope you enjoyed my picks. If you agree with my picks, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. If you liked what you saw, feel free to leave a like. Anyway, this is going to be a very interesting week where some teams can clinch playoff spots or put themselves in a very bad situation to make the playoffs. Where an upset by the Jets will swing the balance, and so will an upset by the Ravens. Where an upset by the Falcons will end the Panthers' perfect season, and an upset, well, not really an upset with the Eagles, where a win with the Redskins will seal their playoff berth. Where a loss for the Giants will eliminate them, where the Bengals and Broncos pretty much battle for a first round bye. There's a lot of storylines this week. All I can say is buckle up, kids. It's going to be a bumpy ride.